Conversation around greatness can have nothing to do with the conversation around being a cultural phenomenon. And now there is no debate that Caitlin Clark has become exactly that. Think about it. The Nike historic shoe deal she just signed, she signed because companies like to make money, and they know they will make money. Because when Caitlin Clark walks into a coffee shop in the middle of nowhere, people recognize her. Because when you are on Saturday Night Live and every news and entertainment network along the way, not just sports networks, you've risen above the conversation about your play and you've become a cultural phenomenon.
To get your hands on the Caitlin Clark version of Nike's Kobe Bryant sneaker, you're out of luck. They are out of stock.
The conversation surrounding greatness in sports is often a distinct, insulated one focused on statistics, championships, and pure, unadulterated skill. It lives in film rooms, on stat sheets, and in debates among purists. But the conversation around becoming a cultural phenomenon operates on an entirely different frequency. It's less about what happens between the lines and more about what resonates beyond them. In living rooms, on social media feeds, in fashion lines, and in the collective consciousness of a public that may not even consider itself die-hard fans. For a long time, these two conversations could run parallel, rarely intersecting. An athlete could be the undisputed best at their craft without ever piercing that broader cultural veil. Conversely, someone could capture the public's imagination in a way that transcends their on-court achievements. Now, there is no debate. Caitlin Clark has become exactly that, a cultural phenomenon. The evidence is no longer circumstantial. It is empirical, commercial, and omnipresent. Consider the historic Nike shoe deal, a landmark agreement for any athlete, let alone a WNBA rookie. Corporations like Nike do not make sentimental investments. They make calculated ones. They invest in projections, in marketability, in the undeniable pull of a personality. They signed this deal because they know, with certainty, that when Caitlin Clark walks into a coffee shop in the middle of nowhere, people will recognize her. They know because when your presence commands airtime on Saturday Night Live, when you are a fixture across every major news and entertainment network, not just the sports channels, you have irrevocably risen above the conversation about your play. You have become a symbol, a catalyst.
Gonna be a monster. It is going to be the most popular and the most important shoe that Nike has released, definitely since the LeBron shoe, and maybe even dating all the way back to the Jordan shoe. And in terms of sales, it is going to be off the charts. And just listening to Caitlin talk about the features that this shoe is going to have, it is going to be next level in terms of the evolution.
A cultural touchstone. The demand is visceral. Want to get your hands on the Caitlin Clark version of Nike's Kobe Bryant sneaker? You're out of luck. They are sold out, vanished into a vortex of fan fervor and resale frenzy. This is a player who just entered the league, yet she is reportedly set to earn $28 million from Nike, complete with the ultimate marker of athletic prestige, a signature shoe. Yet even atop this summit of commercial success, she is not insulated. She still navigates the relentless undercurrent of criticism, the noisy dialectic of modern sports discourse. Honestly, I wasn't even planning to touch this topic. The narrative surrounding Caitlin Clark and her rapid ascension, and the friction it has created, felt like a minefield one best observed from a distance. I told myself to back off. Don't stir it up. Don't give the contentious elements more oxygen. Let the machine, with its press releases and carefully curated talking points, quietly shove the complexities out of sight. But then Nike made a move that was impossible to ignore. A financial declaration that cut through the noise. And right on cue, segments of the media performed that familiar, frustrating trick, focusing on the splash while letting the crucial, uncomfortable details sink out of view. That's when it clicked. This wasn't fading away. This tension was fundamental, structural. Someone had to step into the uncomfortable zone, the space between the highlight reel and the balance sheet. Since major outlets sometimes seem to dance around the core of such stories, treating them as untouchable or reducing them to simplistic debates, the task of unpacking the full picture often falls elsewhere. So, it ends up right here. No artificial shine, no corporate spin, just straight talk. The entire story, in many ways, comes down to 2 shoeboxes. That's it. 2 containers holding 2 products sitting in 2 radically different realities.
This shoe is released, it's going to be an atom bomb in terms of sales. It's going to be an atom bomb in terms of celebrities and athletes wearing them on the court. We've already seen that her CC colorways of the Kobe's are the most popular colorways that are being worn on WNBA and NBA courts right now. This is only the beginning. Once Caitlin's shoe comes out, it is going to be massive.
The first box is pristine. It has clean, sharp edges and a gleaming gold label. It rests under perfect, almost reverent lighting inside Nike's vault, treated not as mere inventory but as a prized relic. The label reads CC1 sample. The meaning is instant, globally understood. Caitlin Clark 1, the first signature shoe. This is the product they've been meticulously building for over a year. A project advancing quietly while the world was distracted by headlines and debates. Then, there is the second box. This one tells a different story entirely. It's beat up, corners dented, a layer of dust settled into its seams. The tape holding the label is fraying. The label itself reads A1. The lettering faded as if it's been forgotten on a warehouse shelf for years. There's no spotlight here, no buzz, no viral unboxings. It wasn't a subject of public longing until sneaker blogs and Twitter sleuths pulled up the paperwork and forced a reluctant audience to look. It's going to be a monster, analysts proclaim about the CC1. It is going to be the most popular and the most important shoe that Nike has released. Definitely since the LeBron shoe and maybe even dating all the way back to the Jordan shoe. In terms of sales, it is going to be off the charts. But here's the part most people haven't fully processed yet. One of these shoes is
A'ja Wilson, the MVP of the WNBA, the greatest player in women's basketball that nobody cares about,
being prepared for a throne. The other is quietly, inexorably, headed for the outlet rack, the donation pile, the clearance shelf. And none of that destiny has anything to do with the granular details of performance technology, cushioning systems, premium materials, or innovative design features. The real difference is something Nike learned a long time ago the hard way. Something the sports landscape is still trying to fully comprehend, and something that is actively shifting how women's basketball is marketed, consumed, and valued. Picture this scene. A quiet locker room after practice. No cameras around. One player is alone, scrolling through her phone. Then it hits her. She sees Jason Tatum posting a photo in Caitlin Clark's Kobe Protro edition. She sees Anthony Edwards in the same shoe. LeBron James shares a story with a fire emoji, pointing directly at the swoosh on Clark's colorway. Luka Doncic appears, jaw-dropping shot after shot, wearing them. Every NBA star who genuinely drives culture, not just follows it, is lacing up the same shoe, backing the same rookie, amplifying the same narrative. In that moment, the reality is so powerful.
Argument right now that Caitlin Clark has become the Taylor Swift for all of women's sports. She's easily recognizable in everything she does, and it's turning new generations of fans to her. It's bringing new generations of women and men to sports that maybe they weren't covering before. It's getting a level of interest that is far beyond the game that's being played. We can continue to debate the career process for Caitlin Clark and what's going to happen. But what this shoe deal proves to all of us and reminds all of us is that there are some times some people are larger than any one particular game that they play. Caitlin Clark has accomplished that already.
Palpable, so heavy that the phone slips from her hand, smacks the tile floor, and the screen cracks. Now, pause. Really think about this. What if the shoe that shifted the entire basketball landscape wasn't even an official signature model yet? What if the true turning point happened before any final deal was signed? Before the ad campaigns rolled out? Before the official paperwork was dry? What if the entire momentum shift began with nothing more than a series of organic, player-driven choices, a cascade of social media posts and on-court sightings that formed a screenshot of the future? Stay with me, because the implications are heavy. Once you see what happened behind closed doors, once the financial and cultural logic starts to snap into place, once the pride, the unspoken tension, and the quiet resentment come into focus, the way you see this league, the way you see Nike, and even the very idea of legacy in sports is going to feel different. This shoe is released. It's going to be an atom bomb in terms of sales, an atom bomb in terms of celebrities and athletes wearing them on the court. We've already seen that her CC colorways of the Cobes are the most popular colorways being worn on WNBA and NBA courts right now. This is only the beginning. This isn't the moment to scroll away. This is where it gets real. But to understand any of this, you must first understand the origin stories. You have to see the paths that led.
I mean, it's a mixture of both. Like, I want to be known as one of, like, when you're talking about GOATs of the W, I need my name to be up there, at least top 3. Like, that's my goal, is like, I want something like, when you're thinking of women's basketball, when you're thinking of the W, I want my name to be on it.
Come on, tell them, Asia, tell them.
Takes, like, whatever it needs to get there, whether it's the rings, whether it's the accolades individually, like, I want to be up there in that category.
That conversation.
Like, I need that in order for me to sleep at night.
These two phenomenal athletes to this inflection point. Without that foundation, you won't comprehend why one kept climbing seemingly effortlessly, while the other, despite a towering resume, began to lose her footing in the public sphere. A'ja Wilson, 6'4", a force from South Carolina, built like a prototype for basketball dominance. An NCAA champion under the legendary Dawn Staley in 2017. The undisputed first overall pick to the Las Vegas Aces. From the moment she entered the league, she did exactly what she was drafted to do: take over. 2-time WNBA MVP, back-to-back Olympic gold medals, a WNBA championship ring, finals MVP. Every major individual and team award that matters in the sport has her name stamped on it. Records fell, seasons bent to her will, and arenas knew her presence before she even stepped onto the court. Her aura was one of earned, loud, unchallengeable excellence. For years, she was the clear-cut best player in women's basketball. And yet, a stark, uncomfortable headline once read, A'ja Wilson, the MVP of the WNBA, the greatest player in women's basketball that nobody cares about. That wasn't a hot take meant for clicks. It was a brutal reflection of a cultural reality at the time. None of this commentary takes away from her resume, which is solid, monumental, untouchable. Championships, MVPs, gold medals, historic efficiency, undeniable impact. You cannot argue with those numbers. She carried franchises, set the competitive bar, and
failed to predict.
I'm not gonna lie, I think we're looking at Caitlin Clark's ad being one of the more viral things we've seen in a long time. Like, if you look at the Instagram post on Nike, as far as I'm aware, the Instagram post has like 30 million views, which is, again, absolutely bonkers. Which is bonkers. It is bonkers to see that many posts, that many things from, obviously, Nike.
Became the reference point for greatness in her era. But here's the part people often avoid. When you become the standard, everything that comes after you is measured against you. And not everyone handles that inevitable shift the same way. Eventually, history shows, someone always arrives trying to raise the bar. Enter Caitlin Clark, Iowa guard, a 6-foot shooter with a range that defies belief, even on film. She stepped onto the college basketball scene and immediately began bending history itself. Records didn't just fall, they were obliterated. She became the all-time NCAA scoring leader, men or women. 3-point records were erased on a weekly basis. Her visionary assist numbers had analysts scrambling through archives to find comparisons. She led her team to 2 consecutive national championship appearances. But it was more than numbers. It was the phenomenon. Arenas sold out wherever she played. Iowa's home games were events. Road games felt like home games because crowds arrived hours early just to watch her warm up. It was the style, the audacious, logo range shots, the infectious confidence, the palpable joy, and a dare to the entire world to try and stop her. There's an argument right now that Caitlin Clark has become the Taylor Swift of women's sports, commentators observed. She's easily recognizable in everything she does. It's turning new generations of fans to her, bringing new generations of women and men to sports they maybe weren't watching before. It's getting a level of interest that is far beyond the game being played. She possessed that elusive, uncoachable crossover appeal. Grandparents in Iowa who never followed basketball were suddenly wearing her jersey. Middle school kids in driveways across the country practiced step-back threes, trying to copy her game. This wasn't manufactured hype. It was organic momentum, a genuine movement, a full-scale wave of
Hoping to get your hands on the Caitlin Clark version of Nike's Kobe Bryant sneaker, you're out of luck. They are out of stock. The WNBA star teamed up with Nike for a player edition of the Kobe 5 Pro Tro, decked out in Indiana Fever colors. You see them on your screen. They dropped at 10 a.m. Monday, and they sold out before 11 a.m.
cultural engagement. Then came the 2024 WNBA draft, first overall pick to the Indiana Fever. And before she logged a single professional minute, records unrelated to gameplay began to shatter. Draft night viewership exploded. Fever ticket sales skyrocketed. League-wide attendance jumped. Jersey sales broke ceilings. Social media engagement entered a new stratosphere. Every metric connected to her name moved faster, bigger, and louder than anything witnessed before in the sport. The creeping tension. Here is where the silent tension began to crystallize. While Clark's cultural momentum was undergoing a vertical climb, A'ja Wilson was watching from Las Vegas. Her arms figuratively crossed, her trophy case stacked, her legacy already secured. Yet, the environment had changed. Every phone notification, every TV scroll, every glance at social media told a singular, repetitive story. Caitlin Clark highlights, Caitlin Clark interviews, Caitlin Clark debates, Caitlin Clark everywhere. Constantly, something subtle but significant started to shift. It manifested in interviews, in carefully measured pauses, in body language that spoke volumes. Comments that were ostensibly neutral carried a palpable weight underneath. There were subtle dismissals, fleeting eye rolls, a tone that clearly communicated, she hasn't earned this yet. Nothing overtly confrontational, nothing reckless, but just enough edge to let the world know the blinding glare of the spotlight had moved, and not everyone on the previously illuminated stage was comfortable with the new shadows it cast. The energy, quiet at first, soon stopped being subtle. The face of women's basketball was being recast by market forces and public fascination, and not everyone approved of the new portrait. I want to be known as one of the GOATs of the W, Wilson said in one interview, ambition burning bright. I need my name to be up there, at least top 3. I want something like...
Now, why are there critics? Well, because Caitlin Clark is white. Here's a USA Today writer. His name is Mike Freeman, and he put up this post. No black WNBA players have a signature shoe. Jamel Hill, who always likes to make a big deal when it comes to race, she's whining that Caitlin Clark wasn't deserving of the shoe deal. It's easy to see why Caitlin Clark was the one chosen to have the shoe deal. Nike is just not handing out shoe deals to anybody regardless of skin color. This isn't a black or white issue. This is a market.
When you're thinking of women's basketball, when you're thinking of the W, I want my name to be on it. Whatever it takes to get there, whether it's the rings, whether it's the accolades individually, I need that in order for me to sleep at night. This hunger, this drive, is what makes champions. But it exists in a new context. The context became especially charged when Nike, the sports commercial titan, ostensibly placed both athletes on a similar path. Similar contract frameworks, similar timelines, the same roadmap toward a signature shoe. On paper, it was a vision of equality, but the market reactions and cultural traction couldn't have been more divergent. One athlete seemed to see the opportunity as a platform to make history. The other, it appeared, began to see it as territory that needed to be protected, defended, even reshaped to fit a pre-existing narrative of earned superiority. So, the stage was set. Two superstars on trajectories that were destined to intersect, one still rocketing upward, the other firmly seated at the pinnacle. Nike, the perennial power broker, was positioned in the middle, because playing the middle has always been its strategy. They don't operate on sentiment or loyalty alone. They move on numbers, market share, cold forecasts, and whatever makes the swoosh travel fastest around the globe. For a while, this delicate balance held. Then, a single screenshot cracked the entire facade wide open. Every NBA season, a dedicated subculture of sneaker trackers operates behind the scenes. These are data fiends who log every on-court footwear
Us as black women, Paige reminds me a lot of you. Like, you say you're not really about me. You know, to her privilege has gotten her to that point. And also, like, she's good at basketball, obviously. But, like, she understands her privilege. It's like what pushes her over the top in a sense. It reminds me a lot of you. And I mean, that's a compliment.
Is that a compliment that let's start there. Is that a compliment that she understands her white privilege?
Choice. Which player wore which shoe, which colorway, every night, every game. It's a spreadsheet culture, pure analytics for the sneaker obsessed. For years, it remained niche, insider information. Then, someone extracted 1 week of data and unleashed it on social media. 7 days, 14 games. The finding was staggering. 42 sightings. 42 different NBA players had chosen to wear the same shoe that week. Caitlin Clark's Kobe Protro Edition, the collaborative release tied to her branding within the revered Kobe line. This number was not an accident. This wasn't Nike distributing team-issued gear. This was a conscious, voluntary choice by 42 elite athletes, many of them all-stars, franchise cornerstones, to select a WNBA Rookies colorway over every other available option in their vast, curated collections. Then came the inevitable, devastating comparison. The same week, the same meticulous tracking. How many NBA players wore Aja Wilson's signature shoe? 1. Bam Adebayo. And even that single sighting sparked debates. Was he intentionally repping the signature, or was it just a random Nike shoe from his rotation? The ambiguity itself was telling. That screenshot didn't just circulate. It became a receipt, an unassailable piece of evidence in the court of public opinion. It shifted the entire conversation from subjective debate to objective data. The sneaker world, and by extension, the sports world, caught fire. To get your hands on the Caitlin Clark version of Nike's Kobe Bryant sneaker, you're out of luck. They are out of stock. They dropped at 10 a.m. Monday and sold out before 11 a.m. Social media erupted. The juxtaposition was too stark to ignore. 42 versus 1. Memes, side-by-side graphics, and pointed questions flooded timelines. How does a two-time MVP, a reigning champion, have less organic on-court adoption from her professional peers than a rookie? How did the commercial calculus become so lopsided? How did Iowa's momentum eclipse Las Vegas's dominion? And the players wearing Clark's shoes weren't just anyone. They were LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, the very athletes who defined cool in the NBA. The traditional endorsement flow, NBA stars pushing product to a downstream market, had been inverted. A WNBA player was now the source, with NBA stars voluntarily becoming her amplifiers. Wilson saw all of it. Every post, every joke, every meme landing in her feed like a series of pin-pulled grenades. And here, the narrative took its most consequential turn. The internet has one immutable rule: never post while emotionally compromised. Never type when your hands are shaking from the sting of perceived disrespect. The internet archives everything. It forgives little and forgets nothing. Wilson's initial responses were vague late-night tweets that could be interpreted multiple ways. But the tone escalated.
The $190 kicks are already showing up on the secondary market at close to double the retail.
Phrases like "real ones recognize real ones" carried an edge. Then came a more pointed message, a line about not needing validation, especially from people who can't even pronounce your name. The target was no longer abstract. It was a clear, public shot across the bow. It culminated in a late-night candid live stream. In a calm but charged monologue, she addressed the elephant in the room. Race plays a role. Let's not pretend it doesn't. She spoke powerfully about visibility, opportunity, and the feeling of being at the top of your game for years while watching the narrative and commercial energy flow towards someone who fit a different, more traditionally marketable mold. She articulated a frustration rooted in a long, painful history of Black women being overlooked, their excellence requiring 10 times the effort for half the recognition. Her point about racial bias in sports and marketing is not just valid, it is historically undeniable. America's sports landscape is littered with these inequities. Raising this issue was brave and necessary. However, in the brutal court of public discourse, timing and context are everything. When you make such a weighty charge, the ground you stand on must be unshakable. And in this specific, hyper-commercial context, the ground had become unstable. The 4-2-1 data point, the sellout speeds, the market's visceral response, these were new, complicating variables. The blowback was swift and severe. The conversation, which had been about shoes and marketability, violently pivoted to race, privilege, and legacy. The nuance was often lost. Brands that might have been exploring partnerships grew silent. The media coverage transformed from sports analysis into a fraught socio-cultural debate. Nike's marketing arm went quiet, a silence that screamed louder than any press release. Every subsequent post from Wilson seemed to sink deeper into a quicksand of public pushback. The hashtags felt less like declarations and more like pleas. The ratio, where replies vastly outnumber likes, became a constant digital scarlet letter. Meanwhile, as this firestorm raged, Caitlin Clark did the opposite. Nothing. No tweets, no interviews addressing the drama, no subtweets, no coded messages. Her public output consisted of game clips, practice footage, and gracious thank yous to fans. She stayed firmly on the court while the controversy swirled in headlines. This contrast became a narrative pillar of its own, calm focus versus public turmoil. Then, the market spoke its final, unequivocal verdict. Nike's quarterly report explicitly cited the performance of Clark's Kobe line as a positive driver for their basketball division. Her name was in an investor call, moving stock. Concurrently, resale data showed her shoes commanding prices 300% over retail, with waitlists for unreleased colorways. Wilson's signature shoe, conversely, began slipping below retail price, sitting unsold on shelves and websites. The market wasn't making a statement about talent, legacy, or even racial justice. It was making a cold, amoral statement about demand, brand alignment, and which narrative consumers wanted to buy into, literally. The next act unfolded on one of the biggest platforms in sports, the New Heights podcast with Jason and Travis Kelce. This was Clark's first major uncontrolled media appearance since the storm began. The audience waited, wondering how she would address the tension. She didn't. Instead, she executed a masterclass in controlling a narrative by refusing to engage with its toxic parts. She was calm, direct, and disarmingly detailed. She explained the 18-month process of creating the CC1. She revealed how she rejected Nike's initial template offers, insisting the shoe be built from the ground up. She spoke of foam compounds, fit systems, and handwritten feedback on broken-down prototypes. She wasn't a passive endorser. She was an active, demanding architect. Then, she pulled out a real, scarred prototype, not a polished sample, but a working model with Sharpie notes and scuffed rubber. The authenticity was tangible. In an unforgettable moment, Jason Kelce, with her permission, took a box cutter and split the shoe open live on air, revealing its inner engineering. It was a raw, powerful display of substance over hype. When finally asked about the noise, Clark paused. She said she couldn't control what people said or the narratives others constructed. The only thing she could control was the work she put in and what her name stood for when stamped on a product. When a kid saves up for months to buy the CC1, she said, I want them to feel like it was worth it, like the person behind that logo actually gave a damn. The effect was seismic. Here was no drama, no clapbacks, just a palpable, undeniable demonstration of craft, dedication, and long-term vision. It was the antithesis of a social media feud. It was building, loudly and publicly. While others were talking, the internet responded accordingly. The CC1 dominated global trends. LeBron James posted his crown and fire emoji endorsement. The shoe sold out in minutes upon release, faster than many major Jordan launches. The cultural moment was complete, and it was undeniable. In the aftermath, the contrasts hardened. Wilson's signature shoe was seen moving to discount racks. Sports debate shows spent unprecedented segments dissecting the gap. Around the league, players posted zip-lipped emojis or went quiet. The memes were relentless, painting a picture of one athlete building a skyscraper while another argued with the architects. Let's be unequivocally clear. This is not a story about celebrating the fall of a champion. A'ja Wilson's greatness is immutable. Her MVPs, her championship, her gold medals, they are eternal facts. This saga is not about her basketball talent, which is generational. This is a case study in the collision of legacy and the modern media vortex. It's about what happens when undeniable greatness meets the unpredictable, often irrational forces of cultural phenom. It's about the peril of letting a competitive mindset, essential on the court, metastasize into a reactive, defensive posture off it. Wilson had everything: the titles, the respect, the foundation for a lifetime legacy. Yet, in this chapter, significant energy was diverted into a battle against a shadow, a rival who never once spoke her name, who was simply executing her own plan on a parallel track. Clark won this commercial and narrative battle, not because of media favoritism or because the world is fair. She won by adhering to a different, arguably more disciplined playbook for the digital age. Head down, control the controllables, and let your work, and in this case, your product, do the talking with ruthless authenticity. She understood that in an era of endless noise, focused silence can be the loudest statement. She treated her cultural moment not as a victory lap, but as a foundation to be poured with care. The lesson here transcends sports. It's about the choice we all face when confronted with someone else's rise. Do we let it poison our own well of contentment? Do we engage in a public battle for validation? Or do we double down on our own craft, build our own platform with such integrity and substance that it becomes a monument, not just a moment? The cameras will eventually turn away. The hot takes will cool. The timelines will refresh. But what remains are the products we create, the reputations we cement, and the legacies we build through consistent action, not transient reaction. A'ja Wilson's legacy as one of the basketball greats is secure. Caitlin Clark is now building hers, brick by brick, shoe by shoe. The true verdict won't be in a quarterly report or a sold-out drop. It will be in what endures when the spotlight inevitably moves on. The choice, in the end, is always between building something that lasts or spending your energy trying to tear down what someone else is constructing. History, the market, and culture itself tend to remember which path was chosen.